Hey guys, this is lesson 10.2, equations of a circle. In today's lesson target, we will determine the equation of a circle graphed on a coordinate axis, and we are also going to use completing the square to rewrite the equation of a circle from general form to graphing form. So first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to review. The review questions we have is to solve for the systems of equations. So that's usually when we have two equations and we have to see where they intercept. So notice in this problem, this is y, therefore they both equal to each other. So that's what we've learned previously. So what I want to do is I'm going to do x squared minus x minus 2 equals x squared plus 2x plus 1. If you guys want to pause the video and then try out this problem on your own, you may do so, but I'm going to continue. So I'm going to move everything on one side. What I like to do is I usually like to take this side and then transfer everything over to the other side. So I would move by doing the opposite for each. So everything cancels here, and that means that this turns into 0. This ends up canceling nicely. We have negative 3x here, negative 3 here, and then notice now my goal is just to solve for x. So this is going to give me the x value for that coordinate that I need. So I'm going to add 3 on both sides. This cancels, and then I have negative 3x equals 3. Divide by negative 3. This cancels, and I have x equals to negative 1. So this is my x value. If I have an x value, I also need a y value. So on the next slide, I'm going to go to my y value. Okay, so my solution for x was negative 1. So if I want to find my y value, I'm going to choose either equation. It really doesn't matter, whatever looks nicest to you. So I think I'm going to do this one as my y. And then I'm going to take all my x's, which is negative 1, and just wherever you see an x, you're going to plug it in for negative 1. So I'm going to go y equals negative 1 squared. Notice how I use parentheses, 2 times negative 1, and then plus 1. And then this simplifies to a positive 1, a negative 2, and then a positive 1. And then this eventually turns into negative 1 plus 1, which equals to 0, which is totally fine. So my final answer for everything is just, so both of these equation number 1 and equation number 2, if I were to graph both of them, they are going to cross at the point negative 1 comma 0, and that's basically all that means, okay? All right, so question number 3 is just a review of the lesson that we did in class. So it says graph the equation of the circle. They want you to find the center, they want you to find the radius, and that's actually the easiest way to start before I start graphing. So in our previous lesson, we learned that for our center, all the values are going to come from the equation, but it's going to be a little bit opposite. So my first value is my x value, which I know is negative 3, but in the coordinate itself, it should be positive 3. And then notice for the y value, there's actually no number being added or subtracted, so this is technically 0, okay? My radius is going to come from the number 4, but it's not 4. We're actually going to square root the 4 to get our radius of 2. So if I were to graph this, this is 3 comma 0, which is here. And then to find my radius, I'm going to go 2 out, 2 up, 2 out again, and then 2 down. So that is going to give me my circle, and look how easy that was. Okay, so I'm gonna graph it as best as possible, and this is what I get, okay? Okay, so let's move on. So in each of these problems, go ahead and try to find the center and the radius. And if you want to pause and do this on your own, you may do so. If not, you can just watch me. So the center is going to come from the values in the middle. Okay, so I'll just highlight like so. And then the radius is going to come from this number here. And then I'm going to start with center for each one of those. Okay, so my center for the first one, negative 2 is going to be positive 2. Negative 5 is going to be positive 5. And then my center for the second one. This one is a little bit tricky because usually for centers, the x value should go first, the y value should go second. And notice that these two are actually switched. So that means that -2 should go first, -4 should go second. So notice that this x value and this y value, they're switched. So you want to also make sure that you write it correctly when you write it out. Okay, so in terms of the radius, it's going to come from the square root of 9, which is 3. And then this one should be the square root of 25, which should be 5. Okay, so notice how easy it was to figure out what the center and the radius is coming from this type of equation. And then if I find both the center and the radius, I definitely know what my circle looks like in the end. So moving forward. Okay, so notice the format of these equations allows us to easily identify the center and the radius of the circle. These equations are in a format called graphing form. However, not all equations of circles are in graphing form, so let's take a look at a few and then we're going to convert them into graphing form. So notice that these two equations here at the very top are not in graphing form. So you have like x squared plus y squared plus 4x plus 2y equals to 11. However, I am eventually going to change them into graphing form. And notice it says x plus 2 squared plus y plus 1 squared equals 16. My center easily is -2, -1, and my radius is 4, which comes from the square root of 16. And then also exactly the same on the other side where it's not in graphing form. However, I could change it to graphing form and then find the center and radius. So that's what we're basically doing today, is going from step 1 to this final step for both of these here. All right, so let's try number 1, or our first transition from general form to graphing form. We're going to do this 2 times together, and then the very last time you guys are going to do on your own. I won't give you guys the answer, so hopefully you guys can try that out and see how far you get. All right, so first equation is x squared plus y squared plus 4x plus 2y equals to 11. So my very first step that I want to do is just to make sure that all constants are on the right side. So notice that I don't have constants on the left side. My constant is already on the right side, so check, cool. My second step is to take all my x values, put them together, and all my y values, put them together. So x squared goes together with the 4x, and then the y squared, I'm going to write it next to the y's, and then 11. So all these are just placed together as it should, okay? Okay, and then we're going to do something called completing the square. So usually when we do completing the square, we have like an x squared that we have to draw, and then we split the 4x in half so we can get the other side of the square. But notice that we have an x squared and a y squared. So all that means is I'm going to draw 2 types of boxes. So one box for this set of numbers, and then another box for this set of numbers. And then the equals 11 just goes on the other side. Okay, so let me just show you where everything goes. The x squared goes here. And I'm going to split the 4x in half to get 2x and 2x, okay? So the y squared goes here. I'm going to split the 2y in half to get 1y and 1y. And then we are going to eventually complete the square and then add it to the other side, and then complete the other square, and then add it to the other side. Okay, so similar process that we've done before, except now we just have another box to do. So the easiest way to go about this is just label the outside first, so that when I multiply 2 times 2, I get 4, so I'm going to add 4 to this side. And then I multiply 1 times 1, I get 1, so I add 1 to the other side. So now, after I do this, I'm going to gather the numbers from the outside to create the perfect square form. Okay, so here I get x plus 2 square, because I have it twice. There's a plus sign in the middle still. And then I have y plus 1 squared. And then once I add all these numbers together, I should get 16. So notice, now that I have all this information, I can find my radius of, my center of -2, -1, and my radius is the square root of 16, which equals to 4. So if I were to graph my circle, I definitely know how it should look like, okay? So this is like the longest way to do it. Obviously, there's a shortcut, and I'll show you guys what the shortcut is, just to make your life a little bit simpler. All right, so here's part 2. Part 2 is just to turn general form into graphing form. So we have x squared plus y squared minus 6x minus 2y minus 15 equals 0. So in this, our first step is just to make sure all our constants are on the right side, and notice that this constant isn't. So to move it, I'm going to add 15 on both sides. And then if you guys want to just rework everything together in the beginning, like so, you can do that. Okay, so this is how everything's going to eventually look like. So I have x squared minus 6x, and then I have y squared minus 2y equals 15. So notice how I moved the 15 over as well. Okay, so you could draw boxes here. Definitely can do that. Or you can do a shortcut, because there are things that typically happens when we do this. So usually what happens is we get two parentheses that look like so, okay? In the parentheses, it's always the variables. So it starts with the x, ends with y, and the number that comes after it is usually half of this number. Okay, so -6 divided by 2 is -3. -2 divided by 2 is -1. So now notice I have the first half of my numbers. And then I have a 15 here. But always I have to add values on the other side. So there's two values that I have to add. One of them is going to come from the x values, and the other is going to come from the y values. And this is the part where I have to complete the square. So in order to complete the square, the first thing I have to do is do 3 times 3 to get 9, -1 times -1 to get 1, and that basically completes my square. So if I were to draw this out, I will show you exactly how it has to look like in order to get these values correct, okay? Okay, so x squared goes here. -6x gets turned into -3. Y squared here, and then we have -1y, which gets splits in half because I have -2y. And then if I want this to work out, so notice the numbers that I'm adding on both sides. So this is 9, so notice +9, and the other side was +1, so notice +1. So I got the same exact thing. So this is the shortcut. If you don't like the shortcut because you know how to do the cubes or the square a lot easier, then just do the drawing instead, okay? All right, so notice that my final answer should look something like this. And then 15 plus 9 plus 1 gives me 25. So now I know my center is +3, 1, and my radius is the square root of 25, which is technically 5, okay? All right, so that was question number 6, and then you guys have question number 7 to do on your own. So make sure you do all the steps. Take the -3, move it over, put all the x's together, put all the y's together, and then draw your boxes if you like. If you want to do the shortcut, do the shortcut, and then just let me know what your center and radius is at the very end. All right, so hopefully this wasn't too bad. I hope you guys have a great day. This is due on Thursday or Friday when I see you guys again.